Marcus Reed didn't come to the property tax office expecting kindness. He came expecting a stamp, a receipt, and the quiet relief of knowing his home was safe from the kind of bureaucracy that could swallow a person whole. He'd paid on time. He'd done it the responsible way, online, early, with confirmation emails saved and a PDF receipt downloaded the moment the payment cleared. Marcus was 36, black, and the kind of meticulous that people like to call paranoid, until that meticulousness saved him. He had a folder on his laptop labeled House, Taxes, another in cloud storage, and a third on a flash drive he kept in his desk drawer, because he'd learned that systems failed most often when you needed them not to. This payment mattered more than pride. Property tax was the line between ownership and the nightmare word people threw around like it couldn't happen. Delinquent. And in a county like this, quiet suburbs, tidy lawns, mostly white homeowners who talked about neighborhood standards like they were laws, Marcus didn't want any label attached to his name that could be weaponized later. So when he received a letter that morning with bold red text, "Payment rejected. Immediate action required," he felt his stomach drop like a stone. He stood at his kitchen counter holding the letter, reading it twice, then a third time, as if repetition might change the words. Rejected. Immediate action. Late penalties may apply. The date at the bottom was yesterday. But Marcus had paid 5 days ago. He walked to his office desk, opened his laptop, and pulled up the transaction history. There it was. County property tax payment. $3,184.62. Completed green check mark. Date. Time. Confirmation number. He clicked the receipt, PDF. It opened cleanly. Crisp header, his parcel number, his address, the exact amount. Under payment status, it said, "Successful, authorized." Marcus exhaled slowly, trying not to let anger take over before facts did. Facts first. Always facts first. He picked up his phone and called the number on the letter. An automated system asked him to press buttons, then placed him on hold. After 8 minutes of tinny music, a woman answered. "Property tax office," she said, voice bored and clipped. "What's your parcel number?" Marcus gave it. Keyboard clicks. A pause. Then, "You're unpaid." Marcus stared at the wall. "That's not correct. I paid online 5 days ago. I have a receipt." The woman sighed like Marcus had interrupted her day with his existence. "If it's not in our system, it didn't post." Marcus kept his voice steady. "I can read you the confirmation number. I can email the receipt." "We don't accept emailed receipts," she said immediately. "Too many fake documents." Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's not fake. It's generated by your payment portal." Another sigh. "Sir, if you want it corrected, you have to come in." Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. He didn't argue. He didn't waste time. He took the hour off work, printed the receipt, printed the bank transaction screen, and drove straight to the county building. The property tax office was in a low, beige government complex with fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. A small American flag stood by the entrance, and a security desk sat just inside the doors with a white guard leaning back in his chair like nothing mattered. Marcus walked past the metal detector, shoes squeaking faintly on waxed tile. He followed signs down a hallway, revenue services, until he reached a waiting area with plastic chairs bolted to the floor and a counter window protected by thick glass. A number machine sat on a pedestal near the entrance. Marcus pulled a ticket. B17. The monitor overhead read B09. He sat down, folder in hand, and watched the room. 2 white couples sat together, whispering about something on a printed statement. A white older man complained loudly to no one in particular that government can't do anything right. A woman in a cardigan bounced her knee, scrolling through her phone. No one looked happy. But Marcus could feel something else underneath the general frustration, like a ranking system no one admitted existed. Some people got patience, some people got policy. After 15 minutes, the screen beeped. B17, window 3. Marcus stood, straightened his hoodie, and walked to the counter. Behind the glass was a white woman in her 40s, with short layered hair and glasses hanging on a chain. Her nameplate read, Janet Mallory, cashiering supervisor. Janet didn't smile. She looked at Marcus like he was an interruption. Parcel number, she said. Marcus gave it. Janet typed with sharp little taps, eyes on her monitor. Then she frowned. Yeah, she said, tone flat. It shows rejected. You're still unpaid. Marcus set his folder on the counter. That's why I'm here. I paid online 5 days ago. Here is the portal receipt and the bank transaction showing it completed. Janet glanced down at the papers without touching them. We don't use third-party screenshots. Marcus kept his voice calm. It's not a screenshot. It's a PDF receipt from your portal. Janet finally reached out, pinched the top page between 2 fingers, and lifted it like it might be contaminated. Her eyes skimmed. Then she placed it back down and slid it toward Marcus, like returning something inconvenient. This doesn't prove it posted, Janet said. Marcus's throat tightened. It proves I paid. Janet looked up, expression cool. It proves you attempted to pay. Payments can fail. Marcus took a slow breath. My bank shows it completed. The portal shows it authorized. If it failed, I wouldn't have a confirmation number. Janet's eyebrows rose slightly, like Marcus had become argumentative simply by knowing what he was talking about. Sir, we see this all the time. People think it went through and it didn't. Marcus held her gaze. Then reconcile it. Janet blinked. Excuse me. The transaction receipt can be reconciled to your ledger, Marcus said evenly. The confirmation number, the amount, the date, and the payment processor reference, those all map to something. Either it's in your system under a different status, or it's stuck, or it was misapplied. Janet's mouth tightened. Marcus watched the shift, the tiny surprise that he knew there was a process beyond no. Janet leaned back slightly and said, We don't do ledger reconciliation at the window. Marcus nodded once. Then who does? Janet's eyes flicked toward the waiting room, then back to Marcus. Accounting. Great, Marcus said, still calm. Please route me to accounting. Janet's tone cooled further. That's not how it works. You can submit a dispute form. Processing time is 4 to 6 weeks. Marcus stared at her through the glass. 4 to 6 weeks. Your letter says immediate action required. Janet shrugged. Late fees still apply if it remains unpaid. Marcus felt heat rise behind his ribs. He kept it contained. So you're telling me I have to wait a month while late fees pile up for a payment I already made? Janet's expression didn't change. You can pay again today to avoid penalties. Marcus went still. There it was. Pay twice and fight later. That was the trap. Force you into panic, then take your money because they knew you couldn't risk your home. Marcus lowered his voice deliberately, not softer as in weaker, but softer as in precise. No, Marcus said. I'm not paying twice. I want you to reconcile the transaction. Janet's eyes hardened. Sir, if you refuse to pay, there's nothing I can do. Marcus swallowed, then said slowly, That's not true. You can look up the processor reference number. Janet's eyebrows knit. We don't have that. Marcus slid a second page forward. It's here. The payment processor reference is printed on the receipt, along with the confirmation number. Janet glanced down again, irritation flickering. Then she did something Marcus had learned to watch for. She looked away from him and toward the side of the office, as if deciding whether to escalate. Marcus didn't move. He kept his posture relaxed, hands visible, folder flat on the counter. He refused to become the story. Janet looked back at him. "Why are you being difficult?" The question landed like a slap disguised as professionalism. Marcus stared, calm. "I'm not being difficult. I'm being accurate. I paid. Your system is wrong, and I need it corrected before you label my property delinquent." Janet's lips pressed together. "If you're so sure, submit the dispute." Marcus nodded once. "I will, but I also want you to open the transaction detail view and check whether the payment was misapplied, because rejected can mean a coding error, a mismatch in parcel number, or a posting delay." Janet's eyes narrowed. "Sir," Marcus cut in gently, still controlled. "If you can't do that, I want a supervisor who can." Janet's posture stiffened, like being asked for a supervisor was an insult. "I am the supervisor," she said sharply. Marcus held her gaze. "Then I'm asking you to do your job." For a split second, Janet's expression shifted. Anger, surprise, the quick calculation of whether Marcus was safe to dismiss, or whether he might actually be trouble in the official sense. Behind Marcus, someone in the waiting area muttered, "Just pay it and move on," as if Marcus was stubborn for not letting the system take his money twice. Marcus didn't turn around. Janet inhaled and said, tight, "Fine. Give me the confirmation number again." Marcus repeated it, slow and clear. Janet typed. She clicked into another screen. Marcus could tell by the way her eyes moved differently now, scanning lines, not just checking one status field. A long pause. Then Janet's mouth tightened. Marcus's heart thudded once. Because he could feel it. She'd found something. Janet clicked again, then leaned closer to her monitor, squinting like the screen had become inconveniently small. Marcus waited, perfectly still. After another few seconds, Janet said reluctantly, "It shows a transaction in the processor feed." Marcus's voice stayed calm. "And?" Janet's jaw clenched. "It's sitting in suspense." "In suspense," Marcus repeated, keeping his tone neutral. "Meaning it hasn't been applied to my parcel?" Janet didn't answer directly. "It failed the auto-posting rule." Marcus's pulse rose. "Why?" Janet's eyes flicked over the page again, and she muttered, "Suffix mismatch." Marcus blinked. "Suffix." Janet finally looked up, irritation now mixed with embarrassment. "Your address has an APT suffix in one record and not in another. The system didn't match it, so it flagged it." Marcus stared at her, disbelief sharpening into anger he had to keep leashed. "So your system rejected my payment because of an address formatting mismatch," Marcus said, voice still controlled. "Even though it took my money." Janet's lips tightened. "It didn't reject the money. It rejected the posting." Marcus nodded slowly. "So the letter is wrong." Janet didn't respond. Marcus leaned in slightly. "Then reconcile it. Apply it to my parcel. Today." Janet hesitated, then said, "That requires supervisor approval." Marcus's eyes held hers. "You're the supervisor." Janet's face flushed faintly. She looked to the side again, toward a door marked Back Office. Then she stood up. "I'll be right back," she said, and disappeared through the door. Marcus exhaled slowly, keeping himself steady while the waiting room buzzed behind him. People watching, judging, pretending not to. He knew what was happening now. The truth existed in the system. It always had. They just hadn't wanted to look until he forced them to. And Marcus wasn't leaving this building until the receipt and the ledger matched, until the county's own records admitted what his bank and his PDF already proved. Because this wasn't about a mistake anymore. It was about how easily A rejected label could become a weapon, especially when you looked like someone they assumed wouldn't push back. Janet left the window open. Empty chair, glowing monitor, the quiet message that Marcus was supposed to stand there and feel small while she decided whether his reality deserved attention. Marcus didn't move. He kept his hands resting on the counter edge, palms visible, folder flat. He stared at the dull reflection of his own face in the glass, reminding himself not to give the room what it wanted, a performance. Behind him, the waiting area shifted with impatience. A white older man muttered, "Unbelievable," like Marcus was the reason government was slow. A woman in a cardigan sighed loudly and checked the monitor as if Marcus had stolen her time personally. Marcus didn't turn around. He stayed focused on the only thing that mattered. They had his money, and they were trying to make him pay again. A door behind the counter opened, and Janet returned, this time with a white man in a tie and a county badge clipped to his belt. He had the calm, stern face of someone who was used to ending conversations with one sentence. His nameplate read, "Richard Hale, Revenue Operations Manager." Richard walked up to the window and looked at Janet first. "What's the situation?" Janet spoke quickly, shaping the story to protect herself. "He says he paid online, but the payment didn't post. It's in suspense because of an address mismatch." Richard glanced at Marcus through the glass. His eyes did a quick scan, clothes, posture, facial expression, like a silent risk assessment. Marcus met his gaze steadily. Richard's voice was controlled. "Mr. Marcus Reed," Marcus said calmly. "Parcel number is—" He recited it without checking his papers. "Payment made online 5 days ago. Portal receipt shows successful authorization. Bank shows completed. Your system sent me a letter saying rejected and unpaid." Janet found the transaction in suspense due to an address suffix mismatch. Richard's eyebrows lifted slightly at the clarity. "Okay," Marcus added, still calm. "I'm requesting reconciliation. Apply the payment to my parcel today and remove any delinquency flags." Richard looked at Janet. "Pull up the suspense transaction." Janet moved fast now, fingers tapping harder than necessary, as if speed could erase the earlier denial. Richard leaned over her shoulder. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he said, Janet's voice got defensive. The system auto-rejected the posting rule because the address formatting didn't match. Richard didn't answer her. He kept reading. Marcus waited, still and steady, heart thumping once every few seconds, as if reminding him this was his house on the line. Finally, Richard looked up. "You're correct," he said to Marcus, matter of fact. "The payment cleared the processor. It didn't post to the parcel ledger." Marcus nodded once. "So it needs to be applied." Richard's mouth tightened slightly, the expression of someone who didn't like being cornered into doing extra work in public. "We can apply it," Richard said. "But it can take time." Marcus kept his voice even. "Your letter says immediate action required. I acted immediately. Applying it today prevents penalties and removes the unpaid status." Richard paused, then said, "You could have just paid again today and requested a refund." Marcus held his gaze. "No, because that shifts the burden to me and lets your office hold double payment. I'm not doing that." Richard's eyes narrowed slightly, annoyance maybe, at being told no by someone he didn't expect to say it so cleanly. Janet jumped in, trying to help her manager feel in control. "It's just how we handle it sometimes." Marcus didn't look away from Richard. "It's not acceptable." The waiting area went quiet in that special way, people listening harder because they sensed authority in the mix now. Richard's tone cooled. "Sir, watch your tone." Marcus didn't flinch. "My tone is calm. My request is reasonable." Richard held Marcus's gaze for a long beat, then looked back at Janet's screen again. He clicked into another view. Marcus saw the change in Richard's face. Less annoyance, more focus, as he scrolled. Here's the mismatch, Richard said, almost to himself. Parcel record has unit A. Payment record has no unit. Janet said, exactly. Marcus spoke carefully. So your system punished a formatting difference, not a missing payment. Richard looked up. It wasn't punishment. It was a safeguard. Marcus nodded once. Safeguard against what? You already had my parcel number. The receipt shows it. The portal took the payment for that parcel. Richard's jaw tightened. He didn't have an answer that sounded good. He tried a different angle. We've had fraud attempts. Marcus's voice stayed steady. Then verify with the receipt and reconcile. That's what verification is for. Richard stared at him again, then exhaled through his nose. All right. He turned to Janet. Open the reconciliation workflow. Manual apply. Use the processor reference. Janet hesitated. We don't usually do manual apply at the window. Richard's voice sharpened. We are doing it now, Janet typed. Her posture stiffened, but her hands moved. Marcus watched the rhythm change. When a supervisor took ownership, suddenly the system had options it didn't have 5 minutes ago. Janet clicked through screens. Richard pointed once. Janet clicked again. Then Janet stopped and said, It needs an override code. Richard sighed like it was personal. Of course it does. He entered something on the keyboard. Janet's eyes widened slightly. Okay, it's letting me. Marcus felt a small release in his chest, still guarded, but real. Richard looked at Marcus. You'll see it post within. Marcus interrupted gently, without raising his voice. I need a printed confirmation showing it has been applied. Today, with a zero balance due. Richard paused. Janet looked up like Marcus had asked for the moon. Richard said, We can print a ledger receipt. Please, Marcus said calmly. And I need any late fee flags removed. Richard nodded once, clipped. Fine. Janet clicked submit. The printer behind the glass started up. Marcus waited, eyes fixed on Janet's hands. Janet tore off the page and stared at it. Her lips pressed together. Richard leaned in. What does it say? Janet hesitated, then slid it to him. Richard scanned it, then pushed it through the slot to Marcus without ceremony. Marcus took it and read it slowly, line by line, forcing his brain to stay precise. Payment applied. $3,184.62. Posting date. Today. Balance. Due. $0. Status. Current. Marcus exhaled, a quiet breath, but the kind that felt like stepping out of deep water. He looked up. Thank you. Richard nodded once, already turning slightly away, ready to end the scene. You're all set. Marcus didn't move yet. One more thing, Marcus said calmly. Richard's shoulders stiffened. He turned back. Yes? Marcus held the paper up slightly. I want confirmation that the delinquency notice and rejected letter will be corrected in the record, so I don't get another one next week. Richard's mouth tightened. The system updates. Marcus's tone stayed even. Today, it didn't. That's why I'm here. Janet's cheeks flushed again. Richard stared at Marcus for a beat, then said, clipped, We'll note it. Marcus nodded. I'd like that note printed too. Richard's eyes narrowed, irritation rising. Sir. Marcus kept his voice calm as stone. You told me I could pay twice and ask for a refund. I didn't. I asked you to reconcile the receipt. You found it in suspense and applied it. I'm asking for documentation that this was a posting error, not non-payment. A pause. The waiting area was silent enough that the fluorescent lights seemed loud. Richard finally exhaled. Janet, print the suspense resolution note. Janet typed again, jaw clenched. The printer whirred a second time. Marcus received the second page. It was basic, no apology, no blame, just a line indicating suspense transaction, resolved, manual posting applied, address, suffix mismatch. Marcus tucked it into his folder behind the ledger receipt. Then he stepped back from the window. As he turned to leave, the older white man in the waiting area muttered something under his breath, half admiration, half annoyance. Marcus didn't look at him. He walked toward the exit, past the security desk. The guard glanced up, then away. Outside, the air felt cleaner. In the parking lot, Marcus sat in his car for a moment and took a photo of both receipts. Then he emailed them to himself with the subject line: property tax payment, applied, balance $0. He forwarded them to his mortgage escrow contact too, just in case any automated delinquent flag had already been sent elsewhere. Because Marcus didn't believe in one layer of proof, he believed in two. He started the engine and let his shoulders drop for the first time that day. They'd tried to make him pay twice. They'd tried to outweight him. They'd tried to hide behind the system. But the receipt had been reconciled, the ledger updated, and the truth, finally, was stamped into their records. And Marcus drove home knowing something that mattered more than the paper in his folder. If a system can call you unpaid when you've already paid, then the only safety is insisting, calmly, relentlessly, until the numbers match.